Ready?
10 seconds.
Okay, call the meeting to order. Item B, verification of public notice and approval of the agenda.
There are no changes. I'll move to approve as printed.
I'll second it.
Motion by Barry, second by Jeanette. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Moment of silence to reflect on the business at hand, and as we do this, I'd like to take this opportunity to reflect on the loss of our 6th grade math teacher and friend, Eric Pilsel. I'm sure everyone in here and watching will agree he was an extremely special person. Thank you. Item D, Watoma Area School District Strategic Plan.
Mission statement, create a positive foundation for the success of our children.
Strategic directions, business and community involvement through internship, job shadowing, and mentorship.
Develop marketing of the district and community through branding.
Improve work and people skills.
Develop parental contacts promoting school involvement.
Build productive relationships with the medical field to increase the support of the lines of communication to support students with mental health issues.
Item E, recognition of persons wishing to address the board, which we have none. Item F, staff student presentations. Item F1, addition of the 1.0 counselor position between Red Granite and Parkside schools.
So I know you guys have always asked us that when there's something that we feel passionate about or feel like there is a need to bring it forth to you, provide you with information. So Ms. Ranke, Ms. Strobel, and Mrs. Primo are going to present regarding this position.
Hi everyone, my name is Brittany Strobel, and I know lots of you by name, but I don't know if you've officially met me. I'm the school counselor currently for 4th and 5th graders at Parkside, and then 4K through 5 at Red Granite. So you each have a handout that will speak to, so if you want to follow along, that's great. First we'll start with just kind of discussing the WSCA state standards. So WSCA is the Wisconsin School Counseling Association that sets standards for school counselors, which then the state goes by. So when looking at those standards, 80% should be direct hours. So of a school counselor's day or week, 80% should be working directly with students. And those items may include instruction, small groups, academic and attendance support, one-on-one interventions, and then crisis, immediate concerns, and then addressing behavioral concerns. 20% of the overall hours should be indirect hours, so that means you're impacting students but aren't working directly with them. And those could include communication, professional development, classroom prep, intervention prep, consultation and collaboration, so working with stakeholders, the community, other teachers, and then referrals to outside agencies and data collection. So we'll discuss Red Granite a little bit first. So what we're at currently at 2 days a week, our direct hours look like 13.7 hours weekly, so that's directly with students. About 9 hours of those daily are with students. Indirect hours currently are about 2.25 hours weekly or 1 hour daily. When we're looking at state standards or WSCA standards and what they should be in alignment with that, it should be 12.8 hours weekly or 6.4 hours daily, and then 3.2 hours weekly, and then 1.6 hours daily. And then I also included what it might look like at a full-time distribution of those hours, so 32 hours weekly broken down into 6.4 hours daily, and then indirect would be 8 hours weekly and 1.6 hours daily. And then Caitlin will.
Yes. So then up next, we just have some numbers for you guys to take a look at. So our academic data is the number of students below grade level. And that's in the 2018, that was, I data, that was STAR data. And then last year was just kind of an anomaly. But then that's iReady data, so the 2021 was iReady. And then for behavioral data, the 2018-19, there's just not adequate data. It was my transition year, so I was transitioning staff in the building to a different system of record keeping for that. But then in 2019 and 20, we had 18 students with 3 or more major or minors, is what we call it in our building. It models, it's similar to the PBIS system in our building. So we just keep track of every little thing, and as they add up, those become major situations. And then last year, we were at 20, and then our attendance, 2 or more unexcused absences, we were at 16. And then we're at 12 currently this year. Yes.
And I think too with this is, this data is important just to highlight because these are the 3 domains that really drive like, the comprehensive school counseling program. So when we look at these numbers, it doesn't necessarily determine how many kids that the counselor needs to meet with, but it allows you to understand that there's probably more going on with that child. Especially with attendance, the significance with 2 or more unexcused absences is oftentimes that leads to truancy if something's not done there. So we'll now move forward with talking about the needs that counseling students will benefit at Red Granite. So currently, Tier 1, which is like the universal approach, we had 100 kids last year enrolled and 107 this year that receive weekly classroom guidance lessons. The actual demand doesn't apply here as we would love to see more kids enrolled at Red Granite, but it's not something we can necessarily make happen. Looking at Tier 2, so that is more of a small group intervention or where it's identified kids that need a little extra help, but not necessarily one-on-one. Last year we had 4 total groups benefiting 10 students. And then this year small groups were not implemented as there wasn't enough space with our special schedule. So I currently share a room with our music teacher, and there was just never a confidential area for who to go in the building to run those small groups and enough spacing for kiddos to be spaced apart. The actual demand, so what we would hope to see is 1 small group per grade level every 6 to 8 weeks and 4 to 5 students in each group, which would in turn benefit 24 to 30 total students. Some weeks would be the same, some weeks would have the same students in them based on progress in week. Moving into Tier 3, that includes one-on-one interventions daily with the school counselor and one-on-one with the school counselor weekly. So this year and last year, 0 students were receiving daily intervention as there wasn't a school counselor present. Last year, 9 students received weekly support, and this year, 14 students are currently receiving support at 15 each. So moving into actual demand for Tier 3, there are 14 students that we identified for K through 5 that could use behavioral support daily, so every 6 to 8 weeks. Social emotional support at this time is a little difficult to identify the school counselors. The elementary school counselors and principals have been working on coming up with a system and a way to identify kids more accurately, because right now it's just determined by self-referral or what we observe or what teachers refer to us. Prior years they used the best, but that was determined that it wasn't the best at identifying kids, so we're in the process of restructuring those items.
So then underneath that table, you'll see just some of the advantages, and I just wanted to highlight 2, especially for Red Granite. The first of being the structured interventions. So for an intervention to be successful, it has to be done with fidelity and frequency. Having a counselor in my building only Tuesday and Friday, the kids, essentially if those Tier 3 kiddos need to meet, they're meeting for 15 to 30 minutes, but it's once a week. So we're not able to gain any ground with them. It's great that they get that small amount of time with Brittany, and we add time when we can find it. but we really need to be meeting with them frequently in order to help them be successful in the classroom and in the school community. And then the second one I just wanted to highlight was relationships with all students. Right now, she's unable to meet with students. Essentially, what we would want to see in our dream school would be her meeting with every student, carving out time with that one-on-one to build those strong relationships and the foundations for that student to try and prevent behaviors and situations when possible.
I think too, the next one I would just really like to highlight would be emergency interventions when principal is gone. So oftentimes Caitlin's schedule is kind of revolved around mine, so she'll schedule curriculum on days that I'm available just in case something does happen to have those extra set of hands, because a lot of times it falls on our secretary who is there handling a lot of these emergency situations when there isn't a counselor or principal in the building.
Any questions about the grant portion?
Move into Parkside, and I just want to note before we get started, this is just for 4th and 5th, so data is just on 4th and 5th grade, as I work closely with those grades now, but it would, if an additional counselor was added there, the implementation of 4th through 8th, there would be 2 present people. So currently, at 3 days a week, we are at about 21 hours weekly with direct hours, and 7, which equals out about 7 hours daily, with 2.8 hours weekly for indirect and 0.96 hours daily. What it should be in alignment with WASD and state standards at 3 days a week would be about 19 hours weekly and about 6 hours daily. For direct hours and indirect would be 4.8 hours weekly and 1.6 hours daily. Full-time, what that would look like would be 32 hours weekly, 6.4 hours daily, and then 8 hours weekly.
Brittany, excuse me, I have
Yeah.
a question. When were these, if you know the answer, when were these standards put in place?
So WASD standards have been around for many, many years. I think the earliest, oh goodness, I don't even know how long WASD has been.
So these
around,
haven't
but-
changed significantly,
No.
and you understand why I'm asking, since COVID?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, not since COVID hit. These were always the standards. I can speak a little bit that the model has changed. So it used to be like a certain amount of hours per thing. So small group was supposed to have a certain amount. Now the model is more 80-20. So there's not specific numbers or time limits on how many minutes or hours you're supposed to spend at each area.
I think I also understand, I'm getting at that with the impact of COVID, these could be thrown out the window, these standards, right? It's more.
Right.
It's significantly more of the impact on our schools, on our families, and on our students.
And I think that's the biggest thing, and I'll touch base on that a little bit, is numbers don't always show the impact that COVID has had on kids. And in a situation, we can say that it's going to be 2 hours that I'm going to be with, direct hours, but really a situation could take, I had one that took 4 hours one day, just because it was so intense, so. Does that speak to that a little bit, Ross?
No, it does.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep. So when we look at the data for Parkside School, the academic level for 4th and 5th grade last year was about 95 students were below grade level in reading, 97 in math. This year we're at 86.96 students, so it's actually lower in reading, and then math is up by 3 there for about 101. When we look at behavioral data, last year we had 46 detentions for 4th and 5th, 21 in-school suspensions, and then 3 out-of-school suspensions. This year, our behavioral data looks a little different because kids weren't in school for a lot of times, and it's a lot easier to manage in hybrid and so on. So we had 13 detentions, 1 ISS, and then 1 OSS so far.
Excuse me, I'm sorry. On the academic data, does that include virtual and in face-to-face?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yep. So attendance data, number of students with 2 or more unexcused absences. Last year we had 39. and that was cut short in March, and then attendance data this year is 52 students, currently in 4th to 5th grade, with 2 or more unexcused absences. So the same format as we talked about with Red Granite. So last year we had 158 students that benefited from General Classroom Guidance Weekly. This year we have 147. When we look at Tier 2, so last year at Parkside for 4th and 5th grade, we had 6 total groups benefiting 26 students. And then again, small groups were not implemented this year because of a small office space when distancing wasn't an option. What the actual demands would be, so every 6 to 8 weeks, again, 4 to 5 students in each group, 36 to 40 students benefiting, some being the same, some being different. And then we look at Tier 3, so that's one-on-one with the school counselor daily or weekly. We have this year and last year we had 0 students benefiting from daily intervention as the school counselor was not present. Last year we had 12 students that received weekly support. This year we have 15 students that receive weekly support. And when we look again at daily intervention for the actual demands, 10 students were identified for behavior. And again, with social emotional support, there is work in progress in identifying kids more accurately for those students. And then under this table, we see advantages of having a full-time school counselor. And I think the biggest thing that I want to highlight here is just the restructuring of the counseling program at the levels 4 through 8. Right now, it's kids have the same counselor 4th K through 3rd grade at Riverview. They come to Parkside, have another one for 2 years, and then they have another one 6 through 8. And when I think of relationships and building relationships with kids and the trust that goes into those things, it's very hard for kids to transition and get comfortable with 3 new counselors in lots of different years, 3 new years. So I think that's a huge one, along with the idea of having a male and female counselor present in the building. So that's what it could be next year. Is just giving those kids the option of who they feel most comfortable with. Those are the biggest things to highlight there. Do you guys have any questions?
So then next, we just highlighted some of the things from Brittany's surveys from both administration and teachers. You'll see the ones highlighted, just needing 2 of her.
So this was my educator effectiveness survey, just to get some background that I gave, sent out to admin and teachers where they could provide insight to them.
Thank you.
Appreciate it, thanks very
Can I
much.
add one thing about that? So based on her survey and just many other things, I hear it from students, from staff, and from parents all the time how great Ms. Strobel is. And I know she wasn't going to include this as part of her presentation, complimenting herself, but she really deserves to be complimented. I think counselor is one of those positions, it's what you make it. It can be as good as you make it, it can be as minimal as you make it, and she does an outstanding job. So I just think if we can add one more of her, it is amazing the services that we can offer to our kids all the time at Red Granite and even more thoroughly at Parkside. So, and one thing I compliment the board on as well is even though Red Granite is an outlying school, you've never forgotten about Red Granite. You make them a priority just like every other school in the district, and I appreciate that. And I think that's one of the areas where this can bring a little more equity, I think, to all of the schools. So, thank you for that.
Just a comment, Brittany, it wasn't highlighted.
Yeah.
Probably my favorite one, she is like a veteran counselor rather than a first-year counselor. That's pretty powerful, right? That's a nice compliment. Thank you. Moving along, item G, Administrative Reports. Tom, anything to add?
Sure, I think it's important to commend Mrs. Primo and Mr. Rochelle and their team for all the work that they put in last week and with the loss of Harry. They spent a lot of time last week to prepare and to service students and families last week, and also prepare for today. They involved the community human services. They involved other counselors from other schools. They got the staff together last week. They got the staff together today. And just good leadership, and I think it shows the culture of that building, that they were able to handle the situation and maintain that cohesiveness during such a tragic situation. So again, they're to be commended for their leadership and for really going to the nth degree to make sure everybody was taken care of. So thank you, Deb and Jim.
Thank you.
Jen, anything to add? Sorry, no?
I'm good, thank you.
Okay. Doug?
I'll just sign up.
Okay. Deb?
Yeah, just along with what Tom said, I just really want to highlight what a strong and supportive staff we have, and not even just Parkside, but even throughout the district. You know, we had counselors from every building that came over and helped us out to support our students and our staff. The other principals even reached out, you know, how are you doing, what do you need? Everyone was willing to help out. So we have an amazing staff. They handled it far better than I could have expected today. So they're extremely supportive of the kids. We have very thoughtful students. Our students who even went to the visitation and the funeral for Mr. Wilson. And you know, they tell stories. I think who's supposed to think about it? He had nicknames for so many of the kids, like they were the bomb or they were G-Money. And that means so much to the kids. So they really appreciated that. And just such thoughtful kids in this process. And then huge thank you to the county. I've always said our district has a great bond with our county, with Human Services. And once again, they came through for us. At the end of the day, they even did a debriefing meeting with our staff. It was phenomenal. I didn't know what to expect, but it went extremely well. And again, it's one of those things that brings our staff together. So, you know, again, Ross, you spoke on what a great person Eric Wilson was. And it's true. And it came out, it was so evident. All those positive stories and how genuinely he cared about people and how much he touched kids' lives. So, thank you, everyone.
Jim, anything to add?
Yeah, just reflecting on the good district that we are happy to be employed in, the good hiring decisions that are made, the cultural environment that empowers our staff to do really good work. Just really proud.
Jewel, anything? No? Caitlin?
No, that's it.
Nothing. How about Adam Vaughn? Nothing at all? Okay. Caitlin, anything to add? Sorry, Sierra.
Really interchangeable. That's
Yeah. Virgil?
I think I can reiterate much of what Devin and Jim said about the staff today. I think, Kay Rochelle, Jim's wife, has stepped in and taken, over a classroom on a short notice and obviously a difficult situation. So, thanks to her, I think, served our district well, and I really appreciate the time she came in and put last week with me just to prepare. I just really appreciate that. Other note is that our ACT test is tomorrow. So assessment season is well underway. Access is about halfway done. ACT tomorrow. And then within about 2 weeks, we'll start pulling in some of our virtual students to start the board exam. So just know that plans for those things are underway, and you'll be getting updates here over the next few months on all that as well.
Great, thank you. Anybody else I missed? I don't think so. Board members, anything to add?
We had our first face-to-face CISA meeting, so that was nice. And most of the schools, Westfield, Portage, Two Rivers, Wisconsin Rapids, Adams Friendship, and Bearview, all are getting shots too. So looks like all the schools are doing the same. And I want to commend Art for doing the shots. I thought it went very smoothly, and I think get a lot of people done.
Anybody else? Just briefly, I participated in the Fox Valley Technical College Board of Trustees annual meeting earlier this week. We did it virtually, which was different but very, very effective, and elected 3 new trustees to the board. So really, I'm never fails to amaze me that how many impressive people we have in the valley over there that can contribute to Fox Valley, and their success is based on a lot of factors, but they got a lot of solid people helping direct them and putting ideas in their heads. So trust me when I tell you, they're really doing a fantastic job, top to bottom. Student council.
So I'm going to touch on the accomplishments. So on January 7th, all the members got to brainstorm ideas for homecoming. Earlier, they all submitted ideas on a Google form, and then we discussed them and went over the ideas more in depth to talk about the overall thing. And then future projects, with the return to a 5-day week schedule, the high school is following the days 1 through 5 schedule. It was best to wait for the final planning meeting for fall homecoming until after spring break. We will have more information at the next meeting. And then for homecoming 2021, it is set for September 20th.
Who are we playing? You don't know, do you?
Broadhead Judith.
Hopefully Westfield.
Whoa, get that on.
Yeah, get that.
So I do too?
That's all right. Bring it on. Item H, consent agenda, the minutes of the February 8th, 2021 monthly meeting.
Make a motion to approve the minutes from February 8th, 2021.
Second.
Motion by Nicole, second by Brian. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. We have item 2, staffing, 2A 1 through 3 and 2B 1 through 7. If there is no reason to pull one or more of these out individually, I would entertain a motion to take 2A 1 through 3 and 2B 1 through 7 together.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Adam, second by Jeanette. Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Item I, action items. 1, business and finance. 1A, approve the February 2021 treasurer's report.
Make a motion to approve this.
Second.
Motion by Karen, second by Adam. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Item 1B, approve the vouchers and payroll.
I approve the vouchers and payroll as printed. Second.
Motion by Karen, second by Brian. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Item 1C, approve Parkside upper and lower gymnasium HVAC project.
Recommended to the finance committee that we approve the bid or quote from Ron's Refrigeration based on the depth of the quote and the air movement or ceiling fan apparatus. We will use the GEARS money, which is the Government Emergency Education Fund, to pay for this project, which would include the installation of the HVAC system and the energy control and design of the project for that. And that would start in June and be done by July.
Tom, what would it mean by premium time labor that's not included? Can you define that at all?
So I don't know if that means anything that goes outside of what they did for us. Is something we're
That was
you might guess on.
That was my only wonder, concern of how much of a variable can we give that? You know, obviously, paying tax, we understand what that is, but my only concern would be, what could that range be for the premium time labor?
Sure. And I know, just explain the finance side, we've worked with both of these companies for all of our HVAC projects and have not had any situation, so I could find that out. But I've not experienced where they've charged us that ever in the past.
So we're going with the full thing, we're not taking out the 9 ceiling fan that's put on the price, right? The option was to remove the 9 ceiling fans. What are we including? So we have the, what the?
So to remove, they are going to remove the
They are.
9 ceiling fans and put in the air repair fans.
Okay.
Yeah. If we didn't want them to do that, then we would take $8,500 off of that. And then the adding the duct sock fabric system along the northwest wall will include that. And if the Gartman bid, we would have had to include all of their add-ons if we wanted to do it, and anyone come in would be repairing them. But I can talk with Wayne about the premium time later, just to make sure you get verification to see what that occurs. But I think that when it goes above and beyond the bid, if we had to have them come back or something. Again, both companies have done great work for us in our system. And we'll use Garvin for something else in the near future. So.
I'll move to approve the project.
Motion by Adam, second by Karen. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Item D, approve the 2021-2022 CISA 5 contract for services.
On an annual basis, we do contract for services through CISA 5. Brief increase or small increase in cost, just natural increases in cost. But then we also have a student who is receiving services outside of the district. They moved into our district, required extensive services. We have them requiring those services at another location to best meet their needs. Also helps keep our personnel costs down to do that. So that's one of the increases that you'll see to the overall annual cost. So my recommendation would be to go with the CISA 5 contract as presented for the next school year.
What's the definition of the special education leadership? What's that?
No, it's Jim will do.
Okay.
Yeah, so instead of us having a director of pupil services, that's his cost for us.
We have our own speech therapist and then also one from CISA.
Correct.
And we have a trend that we've been purchasing this amount every year for speech therapists, never entertained the idea if we have to hire another one ourselves.
So you're asking like going away from the ending where? Yeah, we've had that discussion. I think the issue that I remember in the past has been finding one.
Okay.
The CISAs seem to have better fortune because they can, if they don't devote them to one school, they can split them among schools, and so they're able to get those individuals. So I think in the past that's why we always gone that route. The last time I knew, I still think there's not plenty of, and again, any of these ancillary positions are hard to come by. As far as
I'll make a motion to approve the 2021-22 CISA 5 contract of services.
Second.
Motion by Nicole, second by Brian. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Item E, approve the 2021-2022 wage increases and scales.
So you're seeing the total cost for increasing salaries and wages for teachers, administrators, support staff, administrative support, bus drivers. Teachers are on the alternative pay scale. This is year 6 on the alternative pay scale, so some people are bumping for the second time now. And so that cost is going to be higher this year because, again, like the first 3 years we had 60 people bump. We're right about at 60 again this year bumping. As far as everyone else, it's based on the CPI index, which is 1.23 increase of wages and benefits. So I recommend you approve the increases for all those groups.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Barry, second by Adam. Any further discussion?
Remind me again for the administration, all principals are 260 days, correct?
Yeah, everybody that administrator
Yep.
group is 260
Everybody
days.
is.
Yeah.
Okay.
And actually, I believe administrative support is also 260
Okay.
days.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Item 2, policy 2A, approve revised and/or new policies, second consideration.
So the first consideration you approved, and so you had a chance to see it again. I think there was one typo that we did make a correction to. Any other items or concerns regarding the policies that you saw?
I move to approve the second consideration.
I'll second it.
Motion by Adam, second by Jeanette. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Item 2B, approve system and network specialist job description, second consideration.
So Mr. Brandon Ingalls, who's here tonight behind the camera, this would be his job description. And again, we presented at the last meeting some updates to that, some additional duties and change to the title. So I would recommend that you approve second consideration unless you have any other questions.
I'll make a motion to approve the system and network specialist job description.
Second.
Motion by Nicole, second by Brian. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Item 3, negotiation of personnel. 3A, approve the addition of the 1.0 counselor position between Parkside and Red Granite Schools as presented earlier this evening.
After the presentation, I would recommend the approval of the position, at which time it would be posted. Then Brittany Strobel would have a decision that she would have to make, determining where she would want to work in the future at Parkside or Red Granite. I would also recommend, we're recommending to Cindy that we comp this or take this money out of ESSER funds for the next 3 years as to meet the mental health needs of our students during the pandemic. So for at least 3 years, we can code this to those funds.
Would there be any consideration to splitting time? Like Ms. Strobel said, we're going to hire a male counselor and to possibly split that time then? Just fill in the gaps that are currently exist to give students the option of a male or female counselor, or would you?
Yeah, I think we'd have to talk about it just for consistency's sake. There is a male counselor at Parkside right now.
Okay.
Yeah, and then so looking
But not at Red Granite.
Correct. Brittany does halftime Parkside, halftime Red Granite now. So it'd be putting somebody full-time at Red Granite, and I think it'd be good just to have one person there, just there every day. Then the other person would be at Parkside with Mr. Benesega, who's there all the time at that point.
No. Yeah.
My personal comment on this, and I think you can get at it with my questions earlier, is this is probably the tip of the iceberg as with regards to counseling needs and the stress that is in our community, and in our schools and within these families. So I wouldn't be totally surprised if this is the first step of a few that we have to do to take care of these students.
I'll move to approve the position.
Second.
Motion by Adam, second by Barry. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Item 4, curriculum student achievement. 4A, approve the math elective course at Parkside School.
Mrs. Primo is here to present this, and then Mr. Wolf, 8th grade math teacher, is also here tonight.
Did you bring along the handouts?
No, I can't help myself.
And
Okay, sorry.
I can already.
I know. Okay, so, and Sierra gets some credit for this as well. So we've been talking about 8th grade math, and high school scheduling starts early, so around December time. And the high school asks, well, how many kids would you recommend for the Algebra Strategies course? So Algebra Strategies is a course that a freshman can take. It's an elective, and Jen, please correct me if I say anything wrong. And it accompanies Algebra 1. So recently, the Algebra 1 that was split into 2 courses over 2 years became 1 year. I think that was approved, was it last year? Correct. And so then Algebra Strategies was offered. So of course, fast forward to this December, and they asked Mr. Wolf, well, how many kids do you recommend? The number was roughly?
Usually the recommendation is about 15 to 20 kids on average per year, which is about 1 or 2 classes, so they try to keep their numbers small. There's a contingent of special ed students in the group usually, not all the time, but usually. And this year, based on iReady scores and what I see on a daily basis, we're at 43.
So 43, that's a lot. So then they decided they'd have offered most likely 2 courses. So if you divide that in half, you're still looking at 21, 22 kids per course for the support of Algebra 1. So Sierra, Pat, and I, we kind of talked and brainstormed on what can we do. And so we talked with Pat, and we even met with Jennifer Johnson and Penny Lenz, one of the high school math teachers. So we talked about, what is it that they do in the Algebra Strategies course? What is it that's causing them to be recommended for this class? How many are significantly behind grade level? How many are just a little bit behind? They had a loss of learning maybe because of COVID or just a few gaps in their skills. And so in talking with Pat, he felt confident that he could identify a good number of kids. So we're talking about 12 to 16 students that are kind of bubble kids. They're not significantly far behind, but with a little extra support, maybe they'd be ready for Algebra 1. No guarantees, you know, because it's again how they receive the instruction, how things go. But our hope is, with offering this math elective, fewer students would need to be recommended for the algebra strategies course, allowing smaller numbers in those classes that are offered. And those students who don't need the algebra strategies could then take an additional fun elective. So the course that we're looking to add would be an elective course for 8th graders only. It would be every other day. Pat would be teaching the course. So it would be an overload, which is part of the approval process. The students that were chosen were kids that were 1 to 2 grade levels behind roughly. Am I correct? Or?
Right, and also, you know, our special ed department has their own intervention program. Did not take any of those kids because they have been identified for that. And also with Allison Bowden, our interventionist at the middle school also, we didn't delve into her program at all. These were extra kids that are still on our radar.
When I contacted parents, I got a hold of most of them, and they were very supportive. Like, yep, do whatever you need to do. You know, and these are conversations that we've had throughout the year. They've had with somebody, and they've seen report cards where they haven't been grades that they were hoping for. So the parents have been extremely supportive. 2 parents, even when I described it, they're like, "That's a great idea." So they're definitely on board. There was even one student that I spoke with. He followed up with parents and was kind of like, "Well, I don't want to be in that because, you know, it's like an interventions or it's the dumb class." And, you know, I assured him that, no, you've been going along just fine. The shutdown happened. That wasn't your fault. That wasn't our fault. But because of it, there was some loss of learning. You know, that there were some skills that you would have picked up, but you just didn't. And so, you know, it's not with confidence that they can be recommended for Algebra 1 without sport, but this could hopefully get them. So that is the hope that we offer this math elective. The intention is just for this school year. The reason we chose only 8th grade is just that preparation for Algebra 1, the significance of credits counting when they get to high school. Our 6th and 7th graders, they have a little bit more time to catch up before they get to that point. And we feel confident that we can help do that. From our schedule last year to this year, we did lose our extra math intervention time. We called it SAGE. It was another 20 minutes in the day that kids worked on math interventions. All kids at the level they were at. We lost that this year. So.
I think another thing to,
what?
well, yeah, one last little point to kind of piggyback on Deb and her presentation here was, these kids also that are in 8th grade right now, in addition to being COVID kids, you can call them, from last school year, during their 5th grade year was the year that Mrs. Lotswhite had a medical leave, and that obviously made an impact, I think, because, you know, she's a pretty darn good math teacher. So I think they know that formative year of 5th grade, that's a pretty big year for math, to get all those basic skills that they had to try to build upon. So I think that, you know, kind of made a big difference also. The handout that's coming around is kind of taking from Kenny Lenz that Deb had mentioned a little bit ago. When he came over, they were trying to put together a list of targets that they're trying to address at the Algebra Strategies course. And what I took a look at was what he gave and tried to tweak it a little bit based on, we have, 12 weeks left. If it's an every other day thing, we're looking at approximately 25 to 30 days of contact with these kids. I tried to find the skills that I would still not have to teach. There were some things that were on the list that we're still going to cover in the next 3 months yet. So eliminating those and trying to find what was left over, put together a little checklist, learning target thing to try to gather data, make sure that, you know, if the kids are going to achieve their skills and document it. So we have some basis to say that, yeah, they should be good to go for algebra this year. So that's what the handout that's coming around is going to look like.
Funding for this, because it is loss of learning, and very concerned where we could use some of the COVID relief or ESSER funds for this to pay for it.
So it would cost us $1,179.43. Again, it would come out of the ESSER funds. This is exactly what it's for. So we'd be able to.
Pat, am I correct in assuming that you were kind of the one that recognized that we had these deficiencies with these students, that we weren't quite up to snuff? It wasn't 15 kids, it was 40-some kids?
Well, I tried to put together, you know, with our iReady data, that's one of the pieces that I try to use for recommending kids for algebra strategies or not. how they do on a daily basis, it's a combination of kinds of things. And in the past, we've also tried to use the forward exam to see where they're at. Obviously, we didn't have that last spring, so that makes it a little bit tougher. But these kids this year, those skills that they have lost, is just the gap is, going to be increased tenfold by the time they get here. Obviously, we're trying at the high school level to get the kids prepared for the ACT or whatever they're going to do after Parkside, whatever it might be. And they were finding at the high school level that, on the ACT, there are some skills and questions that are coming from middle school and even 5th grade, or even, the basics that they have on there. And these kids weren't doing well in it. I think that was part of the reason why algebra skills came around in the first place, was to try to catch those skills and not to punish the kids for not being good at math. Not everybody's good at math. I hear that a lot.
Well, I mean, kudos to you and the Parkside team for recognizing this and trying to be as proactive as possible. It's probably, again, this is the start of it. We're going to see these deficiencies and have to kind of plug holes as we go along, and where we can use ESSER's funds, we'll use it. And this is a perfect example of what we should be using it for. Get these kids back up to speed.
Yeah, the data that we collected, like Deb had mentioned, there are some kids that on their iReady scores, they're scoring at the 4th or 5th grade level yet as 8th graders. We try not to target those kids. We try to target the kids that are near the 6th or 7th grade level that we can still make a difference in the last 3 months. So try to get them prepared for it.
And Pat, you in particular, I appreciate your willingness to take on the extra work after, we as a district decided to go back to 5 days a week, and you're accepting the additional overload. That's commendable. So thank you.
Yeah, Deb kind of cornered me and said, you were always interested.
And he's excited about going back 5 days with me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that part.
Define volunteer.
Yeah, let's see. Let's find the other 8th grade math teachers.
But
Hardly any.
second, Adam, thank you.
Any other questions?
We're just looking for a recommendation to approve.
We're looking for
For this overload pay and the elective course.
motion.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Adam, a second by Brian. Further discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Item J, Board Governance Review, the Watomera School District Instructional Model.
You have a copy of the data in front of you. I think page 3, which would be the front of page 2, it's front and back. But I think it's intriguing. Historical COVID-19 cases per location. We had 70 student cases on February 8th. We had 70 student cases on March 8th. So in that month, we've had no student cases. Staff, 40 and 41, so we've had one. So we've had one active case in a month. So I think that's, again, shows the trend where we're going as a community. The piece that Adam had asked for a long time ago, I think is also showing. We've had 8.4% of the cases have recovered. And then 16% of our county population has had at least one shot. And that was as of this morning. So we're almost up to 25% of people have had, and we probably could multiply that by a little more with active cases. But so we're moving again in the correct direction in this pandemic. And then obviously the virtual numbers. Red Granite, Caitlin caught me. I printed a little bit early, but Red Granite's actually down to 6%. There's no one in 4th grade also now that's virtual. And so the overall rate right now, we're looking at about 9.5% virtual in the district.
I think it's interesting just that I think it was probably relatively apparent that from our discussions at the January board meeting that we would be going back to 5 days a week, and just that we went from almost 16% to less than 10%
Yep.
over the course of those 2 months.
I would also equate that to, and I've always liked the term, aggressive customer service by the administration of getting kids back into school.
Yeah, that's great.
And so I think with dignity, but they got the results done. But I agree with you.
Great
So
work.
definitely trending in the right direction. One thing I think that's just, I was talking with Nicole a little bit about, and we're just hoping for that respite, but we're still not getting any relief about masks or physical distancing for next year, which really makes it hard for planning, especially at the elementary level where Jules trying to keep classroom sizes small so that they're still not 6 feet, but we're trying to keep them as far apart as possible. We're hoping within the next couple of months, there's some kind of relief given to that, so that we can plan more properly with our staffing. But right now with our staffing, we're sort of playing as is right now, because we just don't know. We think that it'll be a positive direction, but it'll be nice when they tell us that. Again, when people always ask, why do you guys have to do this? Again, it's always good for you to remember, CDC starts it, goes to the State Department of Health, goes to the County Department of Health, and we follow course. If we don't follow that course, we're really throwing caution to the wind. We can't afford to do that. Someone had said to me, "Oh, you're just afraid to get sued." Yeah, that's true. I am afraid to get sued because that can destroy our district. If the county health department says do this, this, and this, and I say, "No, we're not doing that," and then somebody gets really sick, we're liable, we're negligent. And so that is a true statement. I don't want to live my life that way, but it's a true statement. But we do, they are that, no matter how many people feel about this, they are the medical professionals, they are the ones who make the decisions, and we do have to follow those decisions. And we'll continue to do that, and I think they are providing, you're seeing a little less and a little less, so it'll loosen up a little bit. But anyways, positive numbers in this month. Thank you. 5 days a week. We're staying 5 days a week.
Good deal.
Oh, thumbs up.
Thank you. Item 2, discussion only legislative update. Barry, anybody have anything?
I talked to Tom, and I just got back from seeing family in Arizona, so I did not have a chance to
Anybody else?
contact him.
I think there's one piece out there that's sort of nebulous is this discussion of starting school before September 1st. And, the Department of Tourism came out and said, whoa, let's hold off on that a second. And then, somebody else said, well, why is, we got back to this argument, why is the Department of Tourism dictating when we start school? And they say, well, we're losing a lot of money in the state because of kids go back early. Here's my belief on this, and I just want to get it out there. I think if we told our families, hey, we're coming back August 1st, I don't know if that would sit well with some of our families. Also, some of our staff who don't have this on their contract. We could pay them out of ESSER money to come back. We could also talk about burnout, though, and leaving and coming back. Some things that we're talking about as an administrative team right now is obviously Camp Parkside in June. Camp Parkside is a feel-good experience. There'll be some remediation. There'll be some fun things that take place. You up the pay for the staff. Thank you for doing that. Looking at August, we're having this discussion about, do we start providing some real intense tutoring to students who have these gaps because they weren't in school, they didn't come back in the fall, and we're, past talking about some of his kids, others, we can go K-12, and we can talk about other kids. Finding staff who would be willing to provide this intense tutoring to try to close up some of these gaps. And so I'm talking small groups, 2 or 3 kids per teacher, a couple hours a day. I bet there'll be some teachers who'd be willing to do that. I bet there's some families who'd be willing to send their kids in to get this intense tutoring. So I think we'd like to take more of that route of let's really hit this hard and heavy for those kids who need that before we start the school year next year. It's not going to address all the loss. And again, these funds are really through 2024. We have this money for quite a long time. We can continue to address that. Maybe we can start hitting stuff after school. So there's bits and pieces that we can do. But we want to get the biggest bang for the money that we have. And just creating new positions is not the way to do that, or buying more things. It's what return can you get? And the research that we're doing is really intense tutoring with a small group of kids can get you back a lot of time that's lost. And so we're looking at that route, just so you're aware.
And you evaluate the students as you know what you have there. You understand that through virtual, you understand the mindset that some students just don't want to put the effort forward. Those people that come forward and want to be better, want to bring themselves up to be at that competitive level, they're the ones who should benefit from it. They're ultimately the ones who are looking to move forward.
Yeah.
So you're not going to get everybody to jump on board. In fact, that's just not what they're there for. So I applaud you making that effort. And like you said, it's going to be years. This isn't something you're going to see for 1 year and all of a sudden everything's back to normal. It's going to be years.
Yeah, it's going to take some time.
Tom, I wish you could have seen the differing reactions when you mentioned August 1st coming back with a graduating senior. Graduating senior kind of just flipped her hair and said, I'll be at Oshkosh. And the junior over there was giving us all a death stare.
I was going to hire Harley to tutor.
Okay, I'll do that.
But actually, I agree. If you came back August 1st, business as usual, and every kid was here and going to the normal classes, versus we're deficient in these areas, and this group can come back and go 2 hours a day with David Ernest or somebody, so much more effective,
Yep,
right? So much more accomplished.
yep, I agree.
Okay, if nothing else, item K, board suggested future agenda items. We have a work meeting on Monday, March 29th, 5:30, back in the Distance Learning Lab. If you have something now, go ahead and shoot, otherwise, and also for the monthly meeting on April 12th, 6:15 back here in the library. If you don't have anything now, anytime between now and then, let us know.
Thanks, everyone.
Entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you. Sierra, could you hold on to this?